All right, let's get down to business. If you have been following the polymer pistol world, you know that silence from the manufacturer usually means something big is coming. But what landed on my table today isn't exactly the revolution we were hoping for. We are looking at the Glock 17V and the Glock 19V. Now, for decades, this company has defined the standard for duty carry: reliability, simplicity, perfection. But when the industry giant suddenly scrubs their entire lineup and pushes out a model that looks, on the surface, exactly like the last generation, you have to ask the hard questions. Is this innovation, or is this just compliance? We are going to run these side by side with the Gen 5s. We are going to see if the new internals actually change the recoil impulse, or if this is just the end of an era for the Glock we used to know. A lot of you have been asking if you should trade in your current daily carry for one of these. By the end of this video, you're going to have a very clear answer. And a quick heads up. I picked these up specifically because of the support from the crew over on the members page. No corporate sponsors sending me cherry-picked review units today. This is going to be a raw, honest shakedown. Let's hit the range. Now, to understand why this gun even exists, we have to look at the politics, not just the ballistics. The VE designation isn't a performance upgrade. It is essentially a hardware patch. Down in states like California, politicians decided to blame the manufacturer because criminals were illegally modifying their Glocks with auto-sears, what the streets call switches. So, Glock responded legally and mechanically. If you look closely at the rear rail here, they added a physical block, a notch in the geometry designed to prevent those auto-sears from dropping in. They also tweaked the trigger housing. Basically, they engineered the gun to be lawyer-proof. But here is the problem for the rest of us. In exchange for that compliance, we actually took a step backward in capability. Take a look at the top of this slide. It is completely smooth. There is no MOS cut. In an era where red dots are the industry standard, Glock has handed us a duty pistol that is iron sights only out of the box. If you want to run a Holosun or an RMR on this, you are going to have to send it off to a machine shop like Jaeger Works to get it milled. That is extra time and extra money on top of a new gun purchase. This has led to a lot of speculation that we are looking at a Generation 5.5. The theory is that Glock likely had a massive stockpile of older, non-MOS slides sitting in a warehouse in Austria. Instead of scrapping them, they mated them to these new anti-switch frames and pushed them out as a new model to clear inventory before the Gen 6 arrives. So, you get a safer gun legally, but a less capable gun tactically. That is a hard trade-off. All right, let's talk about what actually happened on the firing line. First off, it is absolutely freezing out here, and that actually plays a huge role in the data. When your hands are numb, you lose that tactile feedback in your support grip. You lose friction, and that is exactly when your fundamentals start to crack. We noticed almost immediately that I was pushing shots low and to the left. Now, be honest with yourself. When was the last time you shot a stock duty trigger? I have been running high-end 2011s with 2-pound match triggers and compensators for months. When you switch from a race gun with a red dot back to a stock polymer pistol with plastic iron sights, it is a violent wake-up call. With a red dot, you are target-focused. You just hover the reticle and squeeze. But with these factory iron sights, you have to work for it. You have to manage equal height, equal light, and constantly shift your focal plane back to that front sight post. It forces you to be honest with your mechanics. The gun isn't doing the work for you anymore. You have to manage that heavy trigger wall, and if your finger placement is off, whether you are using the pad or the crook of your finger, that muzzle is going to dip the second the striker drops. It is a humbling experience, but it proves that while the internals changed, the shooting characteristics are exactly what you expect from a stock pistol. It is gritty, it is functional, and it demands respect for the basics. Now, we have to address the failures. And I use that word carefully because what we saw out here today was honestly unacceptable for a factory duty pistol. Midway through the string, we noticed my groups were shifting wildly. At first, I thought it was just the cold weather affecting my grip, but then we looked at the slide. The factory rear sight had literally walked itself off the center line. It was drifting completely to the right side of the dovetail. I have fired thousands of rounds through Glocks over the decades. I have heard stories about these plastic factory sights being weak, but I have never had one just come loose and start sliding around straight out of the box. It is a reminder of why we always tell you to swap these plastic sights out for steel immediately. But the problems didn't stop at the sights. We also experienced multiple malfunctions. Now, to be fair, we were running some lower power competition ammunition. But historically, a Glock 17 eats everything you feed it. Steel case, reman, low power, it doesn't matter. With these V models, we had failures to cycle that I simply do not see on the older Gen 3s or Gen 4s. So, you combine a rear sight that won't stay put with a recoil spring that seems picky about ammo, and you have to ask yourself, did the quality control take a hit on this production run? To be blunt, shooting this gun feels like communing with my ancestors. It feels like a relic from a decade ago. When you look at the current market, you have the Canik TP9 series, the Walther PDP, the H&K VP9, and the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. All of those pistols come out of the box with superior triggers, better ergonomics, steel sights, and optics-ready slides. And most of them do it at a better price point. Glock is banking entirely on their name and their history here. They are asking you to pay full retail for a pistol that has fewer features than the competition and fewer features than their own previous generation. If you already own a Gen 5, there is absolutely zero reason to switch to this. You gain nothing but a compliance notch. If you are looking to buy your first Glock, find a standard Gen 5 MOS. Do not get stuck with this intermediate model unless you enjoy spending extra money on milling and aftermarket sights just to get it up to modern standards. This release feels like a placeholder, a way to clear out old parts before the Generation 6 finally arrives. Until then, my advice? Look at the competition or stick with the classics that actually work. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Stay sharp.